Good morning, everybody. KT here with Wise Images Photography, and today we are going to talk about deliberate practice. You know, when we get an instrument, we think about practicing with our instrument, right? And so, needless to say, I picked up that little riff from djembe masters. But needless to say, when we talk about practicing, we think about it with a musical instrument, but we don't think about it with photography. So today I'm gonna go ahead and talk about those things, so let's get going. First things first, let's go ahead and talk about number one. One of the things that you need to do when you do deliberate practice is I want you guys to think about how, like with a musical instrument, they talk about drilling down, right? You drill down on those scales, you find a drill, you practice, whether it's if you're playing a flute or some kind of woodwind instrument, you're practicing your fingering. If you are, you're practicing with your breath. If you're doing drums, you're practicing with your rhythm and stuff like that. But they say to do one task for a designated amount of time. And I want you guys to think about that. How can we transfer that type of idea to photography? Think about it. If you have maybe a underwater camera, for example, and you have an underwater housing case, I've heard once you go underneath the water, you pretty much can't see. So what you might want to do is during that focused practice time is set a timer for 10 to 15 minutes and blindfold yourself and just practice working with that underwater housing. Some of the things that I used to do was, and I'm going to get back into it now that I am able to pick up my camera again, is lift up, and I kind of call it like target practicing basically. And I lift up my camera and I go, okay, there's a pine cone over there. I want to go ahead and lift up and spot that pine cone like that. Or I go, oh, look, there's a cat over there. Let me boom, go get the cat or whatever, And so I kind of do these little practice things. I go, okay, there's a leaf on a particular tree. Boom, and I lift up and I go for that. One of the things that I noticed when I was able to pick up my camera from May to basically September, I did not pick up the big daddy camera. I could not lift that big lens. But one of the things I noticed when I got back is that I was not able to be able to lift up my camera and find the animals because I was out of practice, even though I've been photographing for like 20 plus years, right? So if you practice on a regular basis, it will behoove you to go ahead and keep on practicing. So I'm going to get back into my target practice, so to speak. So definitely set a timer for maybe 15 minutes, 10 minutes. If there's a particular task, let's say you're out and about and you're hiking or something, maybe you just spend 30 minutes doing a particular task or 45 minutes doing a particular task, but just set a designated time frame for what you want to focus on. It may be learning your camera, going through and saying, okay, I'm going to learn these menus because when I'm out and about and photographing stuff, I don't want to be spending time in the field trying to find my camera settings. So that would be what I would say is number one, is go ahead and set some drill time to focus on learning your camera, maybe target practicing. What are some other things that I needed help with? Like holding your camera steady. Those would be the kinds of things that I would focus on first. Oh, some other ideas. Maybe what you might want to do is practice like keeping your settings all the same and only changing one thing, like changing the aperture and seeing what it does. All these cute little birds. Changing the aperture, maybe changing your shutter speed, changing your ISOs, and keep everything else the same and see what it does. Especially if you're a beginning photographer and you're trying to work into that manual mode, that will really help you to understand your different settings. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is, let's go ahead and talk about time. Time is essential. And why do I say this? One of the things that I tell my students is always work on your hardest subjects first and then go to your easiest subjects. Because the thought process here is there's normally always, like, most people are most fresh and ready to go when they first wake up. Maybe some people need an hour or two, okay? But for the most part, people are at their best when they first wake up, as opposed to having gone through the entire day and then they're tired. So for example, my friend and I, we like to go out and we like to do photography together. And one of the things that I notice is he's more of a late kind of afternoon person, because that's when he functions best, and I am more of an early bird. So I like to get up and get out there, because by the end of the day, at least in Florida, one, it rains a lot of the times, and two, I'm done by the end of the day. I'm ready to just kind of chill out and relax and just watch the sunset. I don't want to be hiking and trying to find birds. So normally I like to go in the morning. Another aspect with photography and the timing is essential. And the reason why I say that is not only when you are your best, but also when are you going to get the best light? Because we know that right around that golden hour is when you are going to get the best light. But I would like to encourage you to don't be afraid to experiment and try to go out during different times, because maybe you might be able to find an area that's a little bit more shady or whatnot, and you can still keep on practicing. But definitely look at time. Time is essential. My next one is work smarter, not harder. And I learned this from one of my managers when I used to be a server. You know, she would kind of give me tips like, hey, when you walk out to greet your guests, bring your silverware with you at that time. And then get their drink order and come back and grab somebody's plate on the way in, and then go back out and then, you know, with their drinks, and then come back in with somebody else's plate, you know, if they're done with it or whatnot. So she taught me that philosophy of work smarter, not harder. So I want you guys to think about that with photography. What is it that you want to create, and how can you get that image or that shot that you want? When I first started in some of those surgeries and I was still walking halfway decent, I decided that I was going to bring a monopod with me one day. And so I was trying to use the monopod, and I liked it, but at the same time, I didn't feel like the head was very secure, and so I was afraid that I was going to lose my gear. Well, that's not really working. Like, you're just worried about your gear the entire time. So another time I decided that I would go out, and this was after my major surgery, the last one that I had, the fifth surgery after the 7 procedures or whatever. And I brought a tripod because I felt like, okay, well, I kind of like the monopod, but the monopod moved all the time. So then I was like, you know, because you can't just set it and forget it, right? So I'm like, why don't you bring a tripod? So I brought a tripod. And what ended up happening is the tripod got where it was just too heavy for me. And the person that was with me just said, look, I'm going to take your tripod from you. And I'm like going, I got it. And they're like, no, you don't. So they took the tripod from me. But the reason why I brought the monopod and the tripod was because I was trying out something to see if I could be more stable with those 2 items when I was doing video. Also, like if I was just going to sit there on a bird for a while, you know, it would be nice, right? But what I really kind of found is they were getting in my way. One, the tripod was way too heavy for me. The monopod, you know, I couldn't just set it and forget it. And so I was sitting there and I was thinking about it, and I told the person that I was with, I was like, hey, why don't you give me my chair? And because I have this little cute little fold-up chair. It folds up into like almost a cylinder shape, and it folds out, has like 3 little legs. And so I decided that that's what I'm going to start testing out here as a way to be able to stabilize my camera. So I thought of a problem and I figured out, like, how am I going to fix it? And so I want you guys to think about that. Work smarter, not harder. What do I need to do to make my life easier so that I can get those kind of shots that I want to go ahead and get? Which kind of leads me into our next point, which is charting your progress, charting what is working, charting what's not working. And then kind of like you look for a problem that you're having, and then you look at ways on how you're going to fix it. So for example, one of the things I do when I'm in the editing bay, and I was really good at charting my progress when I first started, okay? I was very good at writing down what was working, what wasn't working. Now I kind of do more mental notes, but when you're starting out, you definitely want to chart it. So like, for example, if I didn't like the ISO level, I knew that next time I go out, I'm not going to bump it up that high. That was one of the things that I recently learned with my bird photography. I had the ISOs at like 10,000 and I felt like I really couldn't recover it. I have an older camera, so it's harder. I can't go up as high as some of the newer cameras can and still get, nice footage with it. So I found that 8,000 is about my max on this particular camera. When I was shooting weddings, I would kind of say, okay, well, it was really dark in the reception area. Maybe I didn't have my flash bouncing the right way. So I got lighting that I didn't like. So I was like, okay, next time you're out, try this. So I was constantly trying to tweak what I was doing so that I could find the solution to the problem that I was having. And so I want you guys to take time to really kind of think about that. And then as you start finding those tweaks, keep on replicating those tweaks so that eventually you get your images to where you want your images to be. Now, with that being said though, if you get to a point where you're getting a little bit more stagnant and you're not changing things up, then I want you to go ahead and push yourself to try new techniques, so that way you can kind of expand your horizons. Because I have my photography coach, he kind of looked at me and he's like, KT, why don't you try some dodging and burning? And he started encouraging me to try more things, because I have always been kind of more of a naturalist, I guess you could say, on my images. I try not to doctor them up too much. One of the reasons is because you can't get into like contests and stuff. They don't like doctored up images. They like them, they normally like, you can adjust like your contrast and the brightness, the exposure, but they don't like it when you really go haywire and really start making lots of modifications to your images. So that's why I kind of have always left it more natural of a look. But I'm really also glad that my photography coach encouraged me to go ahead and try and do a little bit more. So those are some of the tips that I would say to do for deliberate practice. Let me know which one helps you out the most. If you guys like this, you think this would be helpful to somebody else, hey, definitely hit that like button so the algorithm gets going. Subscribe if you want to see more content. And if you've already subscribed, thank you for coming back, and I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your week. Remember that you are awesome, and I'll see you later, alligator. There are these cute little birds like all over the place today, guys, and I am totally getting like distracted by them. So anyways, oh, Rocky, are you gonna come out here and join me, buddy? Okay. Hi, Rocky. Okay, so Rocky, my favorite pigeon, has decided he's gonna come out here. I don't know if he's gonna join me on the dock or what he's gonna do. All right, so needless to say, I digress. Where was I? We were talking about lighting and stuff. If he flies on my shoulder, guys, I don't know what I would do.